Defending our Second Amendment is about defending law, order, and life. We know that. As law and order conservatives, we have no higher goal than to reduce violent crime by the greatest degree possible. And there is no mystery as to what is required. Over the past 2 years, our nation has paid a horrifically bloody price for the Democrats' defund the police rhetoric and their weak on crime policies. We have paid a big price. In every city where the left attacked the police, slashing funding, or hired radical prosecutors, violent crime has skyrocketed. Last year, 12 major cities hit all-time highs. This is the history of our country, all-time highs in record homicides. And this year is looking far, far worse, not even close. In Democrat-run Sacramento last year, a man with a long criminal history was released from jail on zero bail and wish that he would never have been put in jail. That was his wish. Weeks later, he broke into an innocent woman's home, sexually assaulted her, murdered her, killed her 2 dogs, and set her house on fire. This past February in New York, another horrible person with at least 6 prior arrests was released without bail before going on a stalking tour after a 35-year-old woman went into her apartment, stabbing her to death and leaving her body in the bathtub. And recently in Philadelphia, a thug murdered an innocent man walking his dog 2 weeks after being released on armed kidnapping and assault charges, where he badly, badly hurt a number of people. The very same Democrat politicians who stoked riots over a single police-involved killing 2 years ago are numb to the mounting death toll of their own radical policies. But we must not be. We cannot let that happen. Big city mayors like Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, Muriel Bowser in Washington, Jim Kenney in Philadelphia watch the slaughter day in and day out and do absolutely nothing. But we must act. If America had a proper approach to policing, prosecuting, and jailing, we could cut violent crime in our major cities by much more than half, and it would take place almost immediately. Under the greatest mayor in the history of New York, Rudy Giuliani, they cut violent crime by 58% and the murder rate by 66% in just a few years. And then it got better than that. And under our own administration, we significantly reduced violent crime 3 years in a row. We resurrected Project Safe Neighborhoods, bringing together prosecutors, police, sheriffs, and citizen groups to get dangerous felons off the streets and off the streets rapidly. We funded 200 new violent crime prosecutors. With Operation Legend, we surged hundreds and hundreds of federal law enforcement officers to Democrat-run cities that you've heard so many horrible things about, to put violent offenders behind bars where they belong. When they started knocking down statues in Washington, D.C. and other locations, I watched this in amazement. Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, knocking them down. And I immediately signed an executive order which stated that anybody even lightly defaces a federal monument or statue will get a minimum of 10 years in prison, 10 years. And immediately upon signing it, everything stopped. Do you ever notice that? It all stopped. There was nothing. Didn't happen. Amazing, isn't it? I felt I had a political and moral obligation to allow Democrat mayors and governors to run their cities and states when it came to crime and riots and even horrible violence. In my own mind, I was allowing the Democrats to show how they would handle the situation. And when it got out of control, I got involved. I got our government energized. I called the National Guard and federal law enforcement, and we saved the cities of Minneapolis, Kenosha, Seattle, Chicago, and even Portland during some very, very bad times in those places. but then they wander back to the past. But if I ever do it again, namely run for president and win, I would no longer feel obligated to do it that way. I would crack down on violent crime like never before. Which is the way I would have liked to have done it the first time, but in a certain way, I'm glad I didn't. The easiest, simplest, most straightforward thing we can do to save thousands of American lives from violence is to hire more police, arrest more violent criminals, give them speedy trials, and get them into jail. And we've now seen what the Democrats do when they're left to run the cities. So now it has to be done right. Over time, that will save tens of thousands of lives and billions of dollars. Never forget, the same people that are lecturing us about gun confiscation are the ones who are also taking cops off the street and letting criminals out of jail, knowing that it will get tens of thousands of Americans killed, and killed rather quickly, unfortunately. You really wonder, do the Democrats even care? Now, the radical left Democrats are continuing to push to abolish cash bail and to strip our police officers of their qualified immunity. Just this week, the Biden administration announced new policies threatening to hold law enforcement officers liable not only for their misconduct, but even for the misconduct of other officers, a totally destructive policy that will only make our communities less safe. What officer is going to get involved if they think they can lose everything, their family, their pension, everything? It's crazy what's going on, not even thinkable. If Democrats truly care about stopping the bloodshed in America, the Biden administration's war on police must end, and it must end right now. We will no longer defund. Thank you. We will no longer. I knew it had to happen. Who is that man? Stand up, please. Who is that? Had to happen. We will no longer defund the police, and we will no longer even mention defunding of the police. We will never mention it again. Great American heroes. And if allowed to do their job, they will do it like nobody else can. All of those crime statistics will be cut in such a big way. You'll be so proud. You'll be so proud to be an American when